In this Baldur's Gate 3 update video, we're going to be talking about Update 6 for Baldur's Gate 3, and this is possibly, if not the largest patch they've ever deployed for early access since it launched. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up as we go through all the details. The first thing added to the game is a new area. This is the first new area added since early access has happened, and this is not something Larian typically does. However, they have stated that this is technically part of Act 1, so they're not adding a new act. And the Grymforge is located in the Underdark after you get on the barge at the very end of it, or the ferry there. As soon as you get on that ferry, normally that cutscene would play with Sven. This is now changed, and it will take you to the Grymforge. I don't want to go into too many spoilers of this area, but obviously, needless to say, there's new quests, new enemies, new things to do, new NPCs. So be sure to check that out if you haven't played Early Access in a while. The second most important thing added, or maybe even the first important thing for some people, is the Sorceress class has been added to the game. This is the 8th total class currently in Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access. You'll get to choose from 2 subclasses, the Draconic Bloodline or Wild Magic. Draconic Bloodline focuses on being sort of like a dragon and getting to pick your bloodline. You'll even get scales on you. You get to choose your appearance a little bit. You get to pick a bonus spell based on your bloodline. And as the game progresses, even though this won't be seen in early access, you'll get stronger with the damage type of that bloodline, and you'll also gain resistance to that damage type. The Wild Magic feature, or subclass, specifically allows strange things to happen in combat when you cast spells. These can either be good for you or bad for you. It's kind of chance. So this is kind of a playstyle that's a little chaotic, and some people may enjoy that and others may not. But it's a bit of, you never know what you're quite going to get with the Wild Magic Sorcerer. They also gain an ability that allows them to have advantage on one of their dice rolls once per day, which is very handy. 5 new spells have also been added to the game. These are specifically Sorcerer Spells. The first one is Horrific Visage. This is a tadpole ability. Then you have Enlarge and Reduce. You can actually increase the damage or reduce the damage somebody does. You have Chromatic Orb, which is kind of a small AoE that you can choose the damage type for. Cloud of Daggers, which is a concentration spell that puts kind of like an AoE of Storm of Daggers on the ground, which is pretty cool. And then you have Crown of Madness, which drives a character mad, allowing you to incapacitate it while you deal damage to it. So make sure if you're playing the Sorcerer to check out those spells and add a little bit more flair to your next playthrough or the new area. One of the most prominent features of the Sorcerer is, of course, Metamagic. This is their ability to change the way spells are cast, whether they heighten them, quicken them, improve their distance, etc. So you're going to get to pick from a list of these Metamagic abilities and, kind of alter the way spells are cast using a finite pool of points, sorcerer points, that you can use to either, replenish spells, or you can sacrifice spells in order to gain more points. Kind of like the Arcanist from Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, if you're familiar with that class at all. It works kind of similarly. Beyond that, some much needed improvements to the game are in the form of weapon actions. One of the biggest complaints I've had, and a lot of people have had about the game, is that if you're playing a martial class, a class that's not really revolving around casting spells, then most of your turns involve moving and just regular attacking. Well, they've added a lot more weapon abilities or actions you can do with weapons to the game to try and make this more interesting for you and to make it more strategic. Some examples of this are Heartstopper, which allows you to potentially damage an enemy and prevent one action on the following turn, which is huge, or something like Crippling Strike that reduces the movement of the enemy on their turn. These are not limited to melee and in fact apply to ranged attacks as well in some cases. So hopefully that, mixes up the martial combat for these classes a bit. I've got to play around with this a little bit, and I do like the addition of it. I'm not sure if I find it enough for the martial classes, in my opinion. I understand there's only so much they can do with 5e, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I'm not going to knock it, because it really does make it a little bit better. Moving away from the gameplay improvements, or additions, I should say, to the game for a second, they have made a massive graphical overhaul to the game. It does texturally look crisper to me when playing. I actually get less frames, so I know the textures are better when I'm playing. But they've also added DLSS support, 2.3 support. So for those of you who've been wanting DLSS, that should be in the game now, and that should help improve, not only performance, but quality as well. Additionally, they've added some new music to the game, new songs while you're menu in camp. They've added the Turkish language to the game for those of you playing from Turkey. And they've also made it so now, beyond, getting bloody, your characters will get dirty, and they'll get sweaty, they'll get bruised. You'll start to see, physical injuries on the characters, which is pretty cool. Moving back to the gameplay improvements and additions, they've refined some of the background goals that they've added to the game and added new ones for the Grymforge area. I expect that's because they are, smoothing this process out. This is something that was added with the addition of the last patch. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the whole process. They've also added a Goblin Prison, and now goblins have a chance to arrest you if you fail checks and things like that, which is interesting. I don't know how that plays out yet because I haven't tried to resist getting arrested by goblins. I usually just kill them on sight. But that is also present in the game now. There are also just a lot of other visual upgrades and effect upgrades to the game, sound and visually, so you should notice these throughout your playthrough as well. Perhaps the biggest change besides the new addition of stuff and the overall balancing of the game is the change to the high ground. Previously, this gave you advantage or disadvantage when you're attacking from high ground, or from low to high ground, you would gain disadvantage. This has been changed, and instead of getting full advantage now, you only gain +2 to your attack roll when attacking from high ground, and you gain -2 when attacking to high ground. This is a massive, massive change. It's probably good in terms of balancing, because the game would get really easy when you had advantage on all of your attacks, and you could stack your party full of characters that just had ranged attacks, put them up high, and you would dominate most battles. And in fact, most enemies in battles were just you and other enemies getting to high ground and then unloading. So this is probably a good overall change for the game, and I imagine they're going to, see if this is enough. Maybe they might bump it up to +3 or +4, something like that, if players think it's too little. But it definitely needed to come down from advantage, so I think this is probably a good change overall. I also do really like, too, that you only get a -2 penalty when attacking up. This is particularly important in a lot of fights in the game, and it should make them go faster, which is something that can't happen enough in Baldur's Gate turn-based combat. It's kind of slow. I do like slow combat, but it's a little bit slower than I'd like. This should help speed it up, especially if you have ranged characters, because they should miss less. They've also made it slightly easier to bed Lysel in the game, so for those of you who are trying to sleep with Lysel, congratulations. Beyond this, there's just a slew of other changes and improvements to the game. Scrolling through them, there are not too many major ones in my opinion. Probably some of you who've played a lot more recently than I have will recognize some of these. But they're just minor improvements here and there, and I would say due to the sheer quantity of them, you should notice a whole different gameplay experience entirely, because there's so many of them. And you might not even notice right away if it's been a while to you, but I imagine the whole gameplay experience will feel smoother, and I look forward to exploring that a lot more. One other bug fix, though, that I want to bring your attention to is that the attack roll with the offhand weapon was not applying a bonus from the ability modifier. This is something that's been missing for a while, and a lot of people were wondering about. This is now being added, so that should properly apply to your offhand as well. Another thing was done is that the passive skills, descriptions, tooltips, spell statuses throughout the game have all been revised again and gone through again. So this should give players a better description of what's happening with spells and effects to help them further understand the game. Another thing that was added is crime reactions being added to Charmed, Polymorphed, and Dominated. Sometimes previously you could use these abilities on unsuspecting NPCs and they wouldn't do anything. Now they'll react hostilely if you use these things. So that's been added to the game as well. So just looking down this list, you can see there are just so many bug fixes and changes to the game. It's incredible. For those who are wondering, how long it's going to take Larian to publish this game, that they've, made incremental progress, one class every so often, 4 or 5 months or so. At that rate, how long will it take them? I think this patch should show you that they've made a lot more progress than you think they have, and I would be absolutely shocked if this game does not come out sometime next year. All in all, these changes and additions should make for a better gameplay experience. The Sorcerer is an absolute juggernaut in the game right now. Metamagic is huge. Being able to cast twin spells sometimes, or increase the distance of certain powerful touch spells, is incredibly strong. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this class if you haven't played it before. The new area is fun to explore. Obviously, this is huge. Larian's never added a new area in early access before, to my knowledge. So I think part of this was due to demand. I know it's technically part of Act 1, but I feel like they really wanted to give players something new to chew on while they wait patiently for the rest of Baldur's Gate 3 to come out. So I'm glad they did that, and I think you guys are really, really going to enjoy it. I'll let you guys read through the rest of the patch notes. I'm not going to get too much more into these. There's just a ton there to go through. I think I've covered the most important points from me. We also have a build guide going up for the Sorcerer class here in just a second. So if you're watching this video and you're wondering how to make a Sorcerer, make sure you check out that video as well. So what did you guys think of the patch? Is this not the biggest patch you've ever seen? Like, for practically any game ever, it's absolutely massive. Did they fix the things you wanted to see fixed? Are you excited to give the game another run and see the new area? Let us know in the comments below.